As the sun dipped below the horizon, Serah's cheeks flushed with a warm glow. She couldn't help but feel a spark of attraction whenever Jonadith was near. His bright smile and captivating eyes made her heart skip a beat. Jonadith, oblivious to Serah's inner turmoil, leaned in closer, his voice filled with sincerity. "Serah, what do you know about love?" he asked, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. Serah's blush deepened as she hesitated, unsure of how to respond. I think love is a beautiful feeling," she stammered, trying to hide her growing attraction to Jonadith. Jonadith's face lit up with excitement. "That's exactly what I think," he exclaimed. "Love is the way my heart beats faster when I'm near you, Serah. It's the way my soul feels alive when we talk." As Jonadith continued to speak, Serah's face grew hotter, and she looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jonadith, please, you're making me blush too much." But Jonadith wouldn't stop. He kept talking, his words pouring out like a river. "Love is the way I want to protect you, to care for you, to make you happy. It's the way I want to be there for you, through the good times and the bad." As the night wore on, Serah's resistance began to crumble. She couldn't deny the strong connection she felt with Jonadith. But as the reality of their situation set in, Serah knew she had to put a stop to Jonadith's confessions. "Jonadith, we need to talk," Serah said, her voice firm but gentle. Jonadith's face fell, but he nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "What is it, Serah?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Serah took a deep breath, her heart heavy with emotion. "Jonadith, I care about you deeply, but I'm way older than you. And even if I wasn't, your mother would never approve of us being together." Jonadith's eyes widened in shock, and he looked away, trying to process Serah's words. After a moment, he nodded slowly, his voice barely audible. "I understand, Serah. I'm sorry." Serah's expression softened, and she reached out to touch Jonadith's hand. "I'm sorry too, Jonadith. You deserve someone your own age, someone who can give you the life you deserve." As they sat there in silence, Serah knew that she had made the right decision. She had protected Jonadith from the complications of their situation, and she had protected herself from the risk of heartbreak. But as she looked into Jonadith's eyes, Serah knew that their connection would never truly fade. It would remain a secret, hidden deep within their hearts, a reminder of what could never be. As Jonadith left the room, he forced a smile and said, "It's fine, Serah." "Really?" But the tension between them was palpable. Later that day, Serah and Tina chatted in the living room as Serah prepared to leave. Serah's gaze drifted around the room, hoping to catch a glimpse of Jonadith. Tina noticed her distraction and smiled knowingly. "What's wrong, Serah? You seem a little preoccupied," Tina asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Serah quickly covered, trying to sound nonchalant. "Oh, I was just admiring your beautiful home, Tina. You have exquisite taste." Tina beamed with pride. "Thank you, Serah. I've tried to create a warm and inviting atmosphere." Just then, Jonadith walked into the room, his eyes avoiding Serah's. "Hey, Mom." "Hey, Serah." Serah's heart skipped a beat as their eyes met briefly.
"Hey, Jonadith."
"How are you?" she asked, trying to sound casual. Jonadith shrugged, his expression neutral. "I'm fine. Just getting some stuff done." Tina smiled, oblivious to the tension. "That's great, sweetie." Serah was just about to leave. Jonadith nodded, still not looking at Serah. "Okay. Bye, Serah." As Serah left the house, she felt a mix of emotions. She was relieved that Tina didn't know about their conversation, but she couldn't shake off the feeling that Jonadith's behavior had changed. Tina walked Serah to the door, chatting about everything from the weather to their plans for the week. Serah listened intently, trying to keep the conversation light. As they said their goodbyes, Serah couldn't help but wonder what would happen if Tina ever found out about their conversation. She pushed the thought aside, hoping it would never come to that. Jonadith watched from his room as Serah left, feeling a pang of disappointment. He was still trying to process their conversation from earlier, and he couldn't help but wonder what the future held. A few minutes later, Jonadith walked into the living room, where his mom was sitting on the couch. Mom, can I ask you something? He said, his curiosity getting the better of him. Tina looked up from her book, surprised. Of course, sweetie. What's on your mind? Jonadith hesitated, unsure how to phrase his question. It's about Serah, your friend who just left. Tina's expression changed from curious to surprised. What about her? Jonadith took a deep breath. I was just wondering, how old is she? Tina raised an eyebrow. Why do you want to know that? Jonadith shrugged. I don't know. I was just wondering. Tina sighed, putting down her book. Serah is older than me, actually. She's in her late 30s. Jonadith's eyes widened in surprise. That's really old, he blurted out, before realizing his mistake. Tina laughed. Well, I suppose it's all relative. But yes, she's older than me. Jonadith tried to cover. I was just curious. Yeah, that's it. Tina looked at him skeptically. Jonadith, is there something going on that I should know about? Jonadith quickly shook his head.
No, Mom.
Nothing's going on. I really like Serah, okay? She's nice. Tina's expression softened. I know she is, sweetie. And I'm glad you like her. But there's something you're not telling me, isn't there? Jonadith looked away, trying to avoid his mom's piercing gaze.
No, Mom.
There's nothing. The next day, Serah called Tina, trying to sound casual. Hey, Tina. How's it going? Tina laughed. It's going great, Serah. How about you? Serah used her charm to steer the conversation towards Jonadith. I was just thinking about your lovely son, Jonadith. How's he doing? Tina chuckled. Oh, Jonadith is fine. Still being his usual romantic self, I'm sure. Serah giggled. I'm sure he is. I was just wondering if he's mentioned me at all. Tina teased. Well, let's just say he's been asking a lot of questions about you, Serah. But I'm sure it's just innocent curiosity. Serah played it cool. Oh, really? What kind of questions? Tina laughed. Just things like how. As the evening arrived, Serah made her way to Tina's house, grateful for the warm invitation. As they sat in the living room, Serah's gaze drifted around the room, hoping to catch a glimpse of Jonadith. But he was nowhere to be seen. Tina noticed her gaze and smiled knowingly. Jonadith is probably in his room, doing his own thing. He's been a bit quiet lately. Serah tried to sound nonchalant. Oh, okay. I was just wondering if he was around. Tina chatted on, oblivious to Serah's interest in her son. So, how was your day? Anything exciting happen? Serah forced herself to focus on the conversation. It was good. Just busy with work and stuff. As they continued talking, Serah's eyes kept drifting towards the hallway, hoping Jonadith would emerge. But he remained hidden away in his room. Tina noticed her gaze again and teased. Serah, are you waiting for someone? Serah quickly covered.
No.
I was just admiring your decor. Tina chuckled. Well, I'm glad you like it. I was thinking of redecorating the living room soon. As the night drew closer, Tina got up to prepare dinner. I'll go call Jonadith, he's probably starving, she said with a smile. Serah nodded, her heart racing with anticipation. She hadn't seen Jonadith all evening, and she couldn't wait to finally lay eyes on him. Tina called out to Jonadith, and a few moments later, he emerged from his room. Hey, Mom. Hey, Serah, he said, his eyes avoiding hers. Serah's gaze locked onto him, drinking in the sight of his handsome face. Hey, Jonadith, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. As they sat down to eat, Serah couldn't help but steal glances at Jonadith. She was fascinated by his profile, the way his hair curled slightly at the nape of his neck. Jonadith felt her gaze on him, but he refused to meet her eyes. He was still trying to process his feelings for her, and he didn't know how to react. Later that night, Serah made her way to Jonadith's room, determined to clear the air between them. She found him lying on the bed, his eyes fixed on the ceiling.
Hey, Jonadith.
How was your day? Serah asked, trying to sound casual. Jonadith grunted, still not looking at her. Serah tried again. Is everything okay? You seem a bit distant. Jonadith finally spoke up, his voice low and husky. I'm just keeping to what you told me, Serah. We shouldn't be having anything between us. We're not in the same age group. Serah's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to bring that up again. Jonadith, I didn't mean it like that. Jonadith turned to face her, his eyes piercing. Didn't mean it like what? You said it yourself, Serah. We're too far apart in age. I'm just trying to respect that. Serah sighed, trying to find the right words. I know I said that, but
I didn't mean to hurt you, Jonadith.
I care about you, deeply. Jonadith's expression softened slightly, but he still looked away. I care about you too, Serah. But we can't be together. It's not right. Serah nodded, feeling a pang of sadness. I know. I wish things were different. Jonadith finally looked at her, his eyes filled with a deep longing. Me too, Serah. Me too. Serah's voice was barely above a whisper as she asked Jonadith, do you think your mother would be happy if she found out about what's happening between us? Jonadith hesitated, unsure of how to answer.
I don't know, Serah.
I really don't know. Serah pressed on, her eyes locked on his. You must have some idea. You know your mother better than I do. Jonadith shook his head, his expression uncertain. I'm still surprised she asked you to come sleep in my room. I don't know what she's thinking. Serah explained, her voice soft. She said the visitor's room isn't fully fixed. That's why she asked me to stay in here. Jonadith nodded, remembering. That's true. The visitor's room is still being renovated. But that doesn't explain why she asked you to stay in my room specifically. Serah leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe she wants us to get to know each other better. Maybe she sees something between us that we don't. Jonadith's eyes widened in surprise. I don't know, Serah. My mother can be unpredictable sometimes. Serah smiled wryly. I've noticed. But I think she's just trying to be kind.
She doesn't know about this.
Serah gestured to the tension between them. Jonadith nodded slowly. You're right. She doesn't know. And I don't know if I want her to know. Serah's expression turned serious. We need to be careful, Jonadith. We can't let your mother find out about us. At least, not yet. Jonadith asked Serah, his voice low and husky. So, is it a yes? Are we? Serah's face turned bright red as she looked away, trying to hide her blush. Jonadith, don't use that word. It's somehow to me. Jonadith's eyes narrowed, trying to understand. What do you mean? Why can't I use that word? Serah sighed, her voice barely above a whisper. It's just, I don't know, okay? It's too formal, too serious. We're just enjoying each other's company, right? Jonadith raised an eyebrow. Enjoying each other's company? That's a pretty vague term, Serah. I want to know what's going on between us. Serah hesitated, trying to find the right words. We're just exploring our feelings, okay? We're getting to know each other, and seeing where this thing between us goes. Jonadith nodded slowly, trying to understand. I see. So, it's like a trial period or something? Serah laughed nervously. I guess you could say that. But please, Jonadith, don't use the word date. It makes me uncomfortable. Jonadith smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Okay, I won't use the word. But can I ask you something else? Serah nodded, her heart racing with anticipation. What is it? Jonadith's voice dropped to a whisper. Do you feel it too? This connection between us? Serah's blush deepened as she nodded, her voice barely audible. Yes, I feel it too. Jonadith's eyes locked onto hers, filled with a deep longing. I'm so glad, Serah. I feel like I've been waiting my whole life for this. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, the connection between them grew stronger, more intense. It was as if they were two souls, destined to collide. Jonadith's lips brushed against Serah's ear, sending shivers down her spine. We're chasing the unknown, Serah. And I'm so glad we're doing it together. As they stood wrapped in each other's arms, Serah suddenly spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. I want to go take my bath, Jonadith. I feel like I'm melting into your arms. Jonadith chuckled, his breath tickling her ear. You're already melting my heart, Serah. But go ahead, take your bath. I'll wait for you. Serah smiled, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "You'll wait for me? What will you be doing while you wait?" Jonadith's eyes crinkled at the corners as he grinned. "I'll be thinking about you, of course. Wondering what you'll look like with your hair all wet and tangled." Serah's laughter echoed through the room, a sweet, melodious sound. "You're such a romantic, Jonadith. I'm surprised you don't have a collection of sonnets dedicated to me." Jonadith's voice dropped to a whisper, his words sending shivers down her spine. "I don't need sonnets, Serah. I have you, and that's all the poetry I need." As Serah pulled away, Jonadith's arms lingered around her, reluctant to let her go. "Hurry back, my love," he whispered, his lips brushing against her ear. Serah's heart skipped a beat at the endearment, her pulse racing with excitement. "I will," she promised, her voice barely audible. "I'll be back before you know it." Jonadith smiled, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'll be counting the minutes, Serah. Every single one of them." As Serah bathed, Jonadith sat on the edge of the tub, gazing at her with adoration. "You know, Serah, I never knew bathing could be so beautiful until I saw you doing it." Serah laughed, her eyes sparkling with mirth. "Oh, Jonadith, you're such a charmer. But I'm glad you're enjoying the view." Jonadith's voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm not just enjoying the view, Serah. I'm mesmerized by it. You're like a goddess, rising out of the water." Serah blushed, her cheeks turning pink. "You're making me blush, Jonadith. But I like it." Jonadith smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I'm glad you like it, Serah. I want to make you blush every day for the rest of my life." As Serah washed her hair, Jonadith continued to chat with her, his words flowing like honey. "You know, Serah, I love the way your hair smells. It's like a field of flowers on a sunny day." Serah giggled, her voice echoing off the tiles. "You're such a poet, Jonadith. But I'm glad you like my hair." Jonadith's voice turned serious, his eyes locked on hers. "I don't just like your hair, Serah. I love everything about you. Your smile, your laugh, your eyes, everything." Serah's heart skipped a beat at the sincerity in his voice. "I love everything about you too, Jonadith. You're the sunshine in my day." As she rinsed off, Jonadith handed her a towel, his fingers brushing against hers. "You're the sunshine in my life, Serah. Forever and always." As Serah emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, Jonadith's eyes locked onto hers, filled with a deep longing. They sat down together, their knees touching, and Jonadith took Serah's hands in his. "Promise me something, Serah," Jonadith said, his voice low and husky. "Promise me that this won't end with a broken heart." Serah's eyes searched his, filled with a deep understanding. "I promise, Jonadith. I promise to always be honest with you, to communicate with you, and to never intentionally hurt you." Jonadith's grip on her hands tightened. "I promise the same, Serah. I promise to always support you, to listen to you, and to be there for you through thick and thin." Serah's voice barely above a whisper. "I promise to love you, Jonadith, with all my heart and soul." Jonadith's eyes shone with tears. "I promise to love you too, Serah, more than words can express." As they sat there, hands entwined, they made promises to each other, their hearts beating as one. As they kissed, their passion ignited, and they couldn't control themselves. They lay down together, their bodies entwined, their hearts racing. "Oh, Serah, I've wanted this for so long," Jonadith whispered, his lips tracing her neck. "I've wanted it too, Jonadith," Serah replied, her voice barely audible. "I've dreamed of this moment." Their kisses deepened, their bodies moving in perfect sync. "I love you, Serah," Jonadith murmured, his hands exploring her skin. "I love you too, Jonadith," Serah whispered back, her fingers tracing his face. As they kissed, their words flowed like a river, their love pouring out of every pore. "You're the missing piece I never knew I needed," Jonadith said. "You're the missing piece I never knew I wanted," Serah replied, her eyes locked on his. Their passion intensified, their bodies moving as one. "I want to spend forever with you," Jonadith whispered. "Forever sounds perfect," Serah replied, her voice filled with emotion. As they lay there, wrapped in each other's arms, they knew their love would last a lifetime. "I promise to always love you," Jonadith said. "I promise to always love you too," Serah replied, her heart filled with joy. Their love was pure, their passion intense, and their commitment to each other unwavering. As they drifted off to sleep, wrapped in each other's arms, they knew their love would conquer all. Around 5 a.m., both Serah and Jonadith were already awake, lying in bed, contemplating their next move. "Hey, are you awake?" Serah whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yeah, I'm awake," Jonadith replied, his voice low and husky. "I was thinking about us, about our relationship," Serah said. "What about it?" Jonadith asked, his brow furrowed in concern. "Do you think we should tell my mom about us?" Jonadith asked. Serah's expression turned thoughtful. "I don't know. I mean, we're not even sure what this is yet." Jonadith nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "True, but at the same time, I feel like we owe it to her to be honest." Serah sighed, her voice laced with uncertainty. "But what if she doesn't approve? What if she thinks we're moving too fast?" Jonadith's grip on her hand tightened. "We'll face that together, Serah. We'll figure it out as a team." Serah smiled, her heart filled with love for him. "You're right. We should tell her. But when the time is right," Jonadith nodded, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Exactly. We'll know when the time is right." As they lay there, they continued to discuss their relationship, their future, and the possibilities that lay ahead. "I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy, Serah," Jonadith whispered, his voice filled with emotion. Serah's heart skipped a beat, her eyes shining with tears. "I want that too, Jonadith. I want to wake up every morning with you by my side." Jonadith's smile lit up the room, his eyes shining with love. "That's exactly what we'll do, Serah. We'll wake up every morning together, and we'll face whatever comes our way, as long as we're together." Jonadith asked Serah, his voice laced with curiosity, "Why were you still single at your age? You're beautiful, smart, and kind. I would have thought you'd be married with kids by now." Serah's expression turned somber, her eyes clouding over. "I was married, Jonadith. I was married to a wonderful man, and we had a beautiful child together." Jonadith's eyes widened in surprise. "What happened? Why are you no longer married?" Serah's voice cracked as she spoke, her words barely above a whisper. "We divorced, Jonadith. We grew apart, and our marriage fell apart." Jonadith's grip on her hand tightened. "I'm so sorry, Serah. I had no idea." Serah's eyes filled with tears. "It's not just that, Jonadith. Our child, our beautiful child, died in a car accident 4 years ago." Jonadith's face contorted in shock and sadness. "Oh, Serah, I'm so sorry. I had no idea you'd been through so much." Serah's tears flowed freely now, her body shaking with sobs. "It's been a difficult journey, Jonadith. But I'm trying to heal, to move on." Jonadith pulled her into his arms. As Serah and Jonadith sat together, lost in their own little world, a sudden knock at the door broke the silence. Serah's eyes widened in panic as she whispered, "Oh no, it's your mother. She can't see me like this." Jonadith's eyes also widened in surprise, his voice low and urgent. "Quick, hide in the bathroom. I'll get rid of her." Serah didn't hesitate, jumping out of bed and rushing to the bathroom. She locked the door behind her, her heart racing with excitement. Jonadith quickly threw on some clothes and made his way to the door. He opened it to find his mother standing in the hallway, a look of surprise on her face. "Jonadith, what are you doing up so early?" she asked, her voice laced with curiosity. Jonadith tried to play it cool, his voice nonchalant. "Oh, just couldn't sleep, Mom. I was just, reading a book." His mother raised an eyebrow, her expression skeptical. "A book? At 5 a.m.? That's not like you, Jonadith." Jonadith shrugged, trying to deflect her suspicions. "I don't know, Mom. I just couldn't sleep, okay?" Meanwhile, Serah was hiding in the bathroom, her ear pressed against the door as she listened to the conversation. She couldn't believe Jonadith's mother had shown up at his doorstep that early. As Jonadith continued to chat with his mother, Serah couldn't help but think about how much her life was changing. She was falling for Jonadith hard, and she knew she had to be honest with him about her past. After a few minutes, Jonadith's mother finally left, and Jonadith came back into the room, a look of relief on his face. "That was close," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Serah emerged from the bathroom, her heart still racing with excitement. "Tell me about it," she replied, her voice laced with laughter. As they sat back down on the bed, Jonadith turned to her, his eyes filled with concern. "We need to care because of my mother, Serah. She can't find out about us yet." As they discussed, the morning sunlight began to creep into the room, casting a warm glow over the space. It was as if the world outside was urging them to never leave each other's side. But Serah knew she couldn't stay forever. She had responsibilities, obligations. She had to leave. "Jonadith, I have to go," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jonadith's eyes locked onto hers, his gaze filled with longing. "I'm already missing you," he whispered back. Serah's heart skipped a beat. "I'll be back," she promised. "Soon." Jonadith nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'll be waiting. Every moment without you feels like an eternity." Serah smiled, her heart filled with love. "I know exactly what you mean." As they sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, the world outside seemed to fade away. All that mattered was the love they shared. "I'll never let you go," Jonadith whispered, his voice filled with conviction. Serah's heart soared. "You'll never have to," she replied. "I'll always come back to you." Their lips met in a tender kiss, a promise of forever. As Serah finally tore herself away, Jonadith walked her to the door, his arm around her waist. "I love you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Serah smiled, her heart filled with joy. "I love you too," she replied. And with that, she left the room, leaving Jonadith to count the moments until they could be together again. After Serah left, Jonadith couldn't wait to see his mother. He burst into the living room, a huge grin on his face.
Mom.
"Guess what?" he exclaimed, barely containing his excitement. His mother looked up from her book, a curious expression on her face. "What is it, dear? You look like you've won the lotteries." Jonadith plopped down on the couch beside her, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. I had the best night ever, Mom." His mother's eyes narrowed, her curiosity piqued. "Oh, and what made it so special?" Jonadith's grin grew even wider, but he didn't say a word. His mother tried again. "Come on, Jonadith, spill the beans. What's got you so excited?" Jonadith just chuckled, his eyes sparkling with mischief. His mother sighed, laughing. "Fine, be that way. But I'm not giving up. I'll get it out of you eventually." Jonadith just winked at her, his excitement still radiating from every pore. As they sat there, his mother tried every trick in the book to get Jonadith to spill the beans, but he wasn't having it. "I'm just happy, Mom. That's all," he said, his voice filled with conviction. His mother raised an eyebrow. "Just happy? That's not like you, Jonadith. You're always bursting with excitement, but this is different. This is serene." Jonadith's smile faltered for a moment, before he regained his composure. "Maybe I'm just growing up, Mom." His mother chuckled. "Maybe you are, dear. But I still want to know what's behind that smile." Jonadith just laughed, his secret safe for now. 2 days later, Jonadith and Serah found themselves on a late-night phone call, their voices barely above a whisper. "I miss you so much," Serah sighed, her voice filled with longing. "I miss you too," Jonadith replied, his voice low and husky. "I can't stop thinking about you." Serah's heart skipped a beat. "I know exactly what you mean. I feel like a part of me is missing without you." Jonadith's voice dropped to a whisper. "You're the missing piece I never knew I needed, Serah. You make me whole." Serah's breath caught in her throat. "You make me feel the same way, Jonadith. I feel like I'm floating on air when we're together." As they talked, Jonadith's words wove a spell around Serah, making her feel like she was melting into his voice. "I want to hold you in my arms right now," Jonadith whispered, his voice sending shivers down Serah's spine. Serah's voice trembled. I want that too. I need it. Jonadith's words grew more intimate, more sensual, and Serah found herself losing control. Jonadith, oh my God, she whispered, her voice barely audible. What babies? Jonadith's voice was low and husky, sending waves of pleasure through Serah's body. Serah couldn't respond. She was too far gone. She let out a scream of pleasure, her body trembling with desire. Jonadith chuckled, his voice filled with satisfaction. I love making you feel that way, Serah. I love being the one who makes you lose control. As they talked, Serah felt like she was soaring, her body and soul on fire with desire. Jonadith, I love you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I love you too, Serah, Jonadith replied, his voice filled with emotion. Forever and always. As Jonadith and Serah were lost in their sweet talk, Serah's phone suddenly beeped, indicating an incoming call from Jonadith's mother. Jonadith, I have to go, Serah said, her voice apologetic. Your mother is calling me. Jonadith's voice was filled with concern.
What does she want?
Serah hesitated for a moment before answering the call. Hello, Serah said, trying to sound calm.
Hi, Serah.
I hope I'm not interrupting anything, Jonadith's mother said, her voice warm and friendly. No, not at all, Serah replied, trying to hide her guilt. I was wondering if you'd be free tomorrow? I'd love to have a conversation with you, Jonadith's mother asked, her tone curious. Serah hesitated for a moment before responding. Actually, I'd love to come over to your place instead. Would that be okay? Jonadith's mother was taken aback by the suggestion. The next afternoon, Serah arrived at Tina's house, and they sat down in the cozy living room. Tina poured them each a cup of tea, and they began their conversation. Tina leaned in, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Serah, I've been thinking, how's your relationship life going? Are you seeing anyone special? Serah hesitated, unsure of how to answer. She couldn't reveal her secret affair with Tina's son, Jonadith. Well, Tina, I've actually found someone who makes me incredibly happy. Tina's face lit up with excitement. That's wonderful, Serah. I'm so happy for you. Tell me more about him. Serah's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't reveal Jonadith's identity without betraying his trust. I'd rather not say just yet, Tina. Let's just say he's someone special, and I'm enjoying getting to know him better. Tina's expression turned curious, but she didn't press the issue. I understand, dear. I just want you to be happy. Can you tell me more about how you feel? What's it like being with him? Serah's thoughts drifted to Jonadith, and she couldn't help but smile. It's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I feel seen and heard in a way I never have before.
He makes me feel alive. Tina?
Tina's eyes sparkled with delight. That sounds amazing, Serah. I'm so thrilled for you. You deserve all the happiness in the world. As they continued their conversation, Serah found herself sharing more about her feelings and emotions, without revealing Jonadith's identity. Tina listened intently, offering words of wisdom and encouragement. The conversation flowed effortlessly, like a gentle stream meandering through the countryside. They talked about everything from love to heartbreak, from trust to vulnerability. As the afternoon wore on, Serah realized that she had been talking for hours. She felt a sense of wonder at how much she had shared with Tina without revealing her secret. Tina smiled, her eyes shining with warmth. Thank you for sharing so much with me, Serah. You are an incredible person, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life. As Tina and Serah continued their conversation, the doorbell rang, signaling Jonadith's arrival. Tina excused herself to let him in, and Serah's heart skipped a beat as she heard his footsteps approaching. As Jonadith entered the room, his eyes met Serah's, and they exchanged a brief, intense gaze. Serah felt her cheeks flush, and she quickly looked away, trying to compose herself. Jonadith's eyes lingered on Serah for a moment before he turned to his mother.
Hey, Mom.
Sorry I'm late. Tina smiled, oblivious to the tension between them. No worries, dear. We were just catching up. Jonadith's eyes drifted back to Serah, and they exchanged another brief glance. This time, Serah didn't look away, and they held each other's gaze for a few seconds. Tina noticed the exchange and smiled knowingly. "Why don't you join us, Jonadith? We were just discussing Serah's love life." Jonadith's eyes widened slightly, and he cleared his throat. "Oh yeah? What's going on?" Serah felt her heart racing as Jonadith sat down beside her. Their legs touched, and they exchanged another brief glance. Tina leaned in, her voice conspiratorial. "Serah's found someone special, but she won't tell me who it is." Jonadith's eyes locked onto Serah's, and they shared a moment of raw tension. Serah felt like she was drowning in his gaze. "Maybe I can help you figure out who it is, Mom," Jonadith said, his voice low and husky. Serah's heart skipped a beat as Jonadith's hand brushed against hers. They exchanged another brief glance, and Serah knew they were playing with fire. The conversation continued, with Tina probing for more information about Serah's mystery man. Jonadith and Serah exchanged occasional glances, their tension growing with each passing moment. As the afternoon wore on, Jonadith and Serah found themselves lost in conversation, their words flowing effortlessly. Tina watched, a knowing smile on her face, as they grew closer and closer. Finally, as the sun began to set, Serah knew she had to leave. She stood up, her heart heavy with the thought of parting from Jonadith. Tina told her it was already late and asked why she couldn't just pass the night there and then leave in the morning. Serah turned and looked at Jonadith, who nodded, asking her to sleep over, please.